Hi everybody, this is a summary of a recent paper that was published in Assets in 2018 called Unlocking Accessible Escape Rooms, Is Technology the Key? So I am a senior lecturer in computing at the University of Dundee, and I'm interested in a number of things, but in particular user experience and accessibility. So if you want to find out more about the sort of stuff that I have going on in relation to escape rooms, you can find out at www.ux/d.co.uk. So first of all, what are escape rooms? So some of you may have played an escape room, some of you will at least heard of them. Escape rooms are live-action team-based games where players discover clues, solve puzzles and accomplish tasks in one or more rooms in order to accomplish a specific goal, which is usually but not always escaping from the room within a limited time frame. So the theme is typically some narrative that you have to avoid something unpleasant, and often you have to retrieve something. Puzzles tend to be quite varied. Within public escape rooms, those are in-game knowledge only, so you don't need any knowledge about the outside world. And there's a game master whose job it is to support the players within the room. So there's been some really interesting escape rooms that you can go and read some more about if you're interested. So Ford, as an example, hired a 35,000 square foot venue and created an escape room that required you to drive their car throughout it so that you could use some features within it. So the rear reversing camera was used in the game. So I wanted to get some understanding of escape rooms and how people might use that technology within them, and then move on to looking at the accessibility of that. So I ran an online survey gathering information on what technologies exist within escape rooms and what accessibility issues there are. The survey was open for 5 weeks and we recruited online via social media. So we had 69 participants, an even gender split, most were players, and 10 of them reported having at least one disability. Most of the participants came from North America and Europe, which meant that we had an English-speaking demographic. We released a survey in English. So that meant that we did unfortunately miss out on Asia, where escape rooms originated and are still very popular. We analysed those survey responses using affinity diagramming, and some of those responses were analysed by participants with expertise in qualitative research methods or escape rooms, and half of them were analysed by myself. So we created 4 affinity groups and contextual insights were generated over those areas. So the first of those is the general lack of accessibility within the rooms, partly because designers perceive a lack of business case and customer demand, and sometimes there are situations that require a single modality, so information is presented only via audio on a telephone. But participants did emphasise that there's a group dynamic, and that means that others can often help them when they struggle. There were situational challenges, and these were a result of the environment. So for example, there was poor light, and that meant that people were unable to read documents or distinguish colour. The game master was a really crucial element because their role is to give clues to people in the room so that there's more chance of them successfully escaping, but that's often given via single modality, so just by visually on a screen or using audio for walkie-talkies. And the fourth group was that participants noted that immersion was really important. So where there's a theme or a narrative in the group, within the room, you want to maintain that. So you need to hide technology in order to maintain that immersion. So we had a few examples of accessibility challenges within the escape room from our participants, which we've mapped to visual, auditory, physical and cognitive disabilities. So a visual one might be that there's paper materials, so someone with a visual impairment finds it difficult to read them. Someone with a colour vision impairment would find it difficult to distinguish between colours. For visual, sometimes information was presented, for example, using Morse code. So that meant that people who with a hearing impairment were unable to solve that particular puzzle. The access in and around the room and requiring fine motor control caused problems with physical disabilities. And for users with cognitive disabilities, there was no scaling of difficulty or map of progress, which meant it was difficult for them to often engage fully. So where does the project go now that we have that information? So we need to find people with disabilities who've been in an escape room, even more of them, to get more of an understanding. But we also want to figure out how technology can be used to mitigate that. So in many other areas, we see an introduction of technology as having benefits for accessibility. And so far we have no evidence of this in escape rooms. So is it the engagement of users with disabilities that means that owners and marketers don't see that kind of desire? Or is it the game element? Because we know that traditionally the game industry is far behind in terms of accessibility, compliance, and engagement. So what I want to do is build a fully accessible escape room so that we can investigate how it might be done. And as part of that, I want to explore what I'm calling the superhero effect. So that is that someone with disabilities might be able to perceive information better or more quickly than others in particular modalities, and they would be an asset within the room. So, for example, audio processing. Someone with a visual impairment may be able to process audio more quickly. Someone with colour blindness may be able to see things that others cannot, and so they're actually required in order to complete the room. And that kind of turns on its head this idea that people with disabilities struggle within the room. So hopefully that has been a whistle-stop tour of my thinking about escape rooms. Good luck this week.